Well, hello, Mishpacha. Hey, this is Moreh Malkiyah, and excuse me. I want to just welcome you. Thank you for being with us. So glad that you're here. Yes, this is a live stream, and I am delighted to be with you. This is Shabbat, and I want to say to each and every one of the family members, Baruch haba, you are welcome. Let's just relax. Let's just enjoy ourselves, and let's begin to just really think about the goodness of our Elohim and how we are just delighted. We're just delighted to be in His presence on this Shabbat. I want to speak with you very briefly about a couple of things. One, I want to touch upon some things that are in relationship to Daniel, and I want to bring your attention to something in Daniel. In fact, let me do this. Let me do this real quick. I want to, I want to go to the, let's see here. I'll tell you what, give me just a second. Okay, I'm back. My apologies. Just needed to kind of, work some things out. And I want to invite your attention to the book of Daniel. Let's take a look at the book of Daniel and let's read together. We're going to go to the prophet Daniel. We're going to take a look at the 4th chapter. And I want to begin at verse number 1. Now, this is Daniel, 4th chapter, and verse number 1. I would give you time to get it, but I've got it right here. So why don't we go ahead and just dig in? And it reads as follows. It reads, 4 and 1, I, Nebuchadnezzar, was living serenely in my house, flourishing in my palace. And he says that he had a dream, right? Well, we know what happened when he had this dream. Daniel was called to read the dream, and so it was, how can I say, it was a supernatural work of understanding and wisdom and insight. I actually want to skip down to the 5th chapter. That's really where I want to be. There we go. King Belteshazzar. But now, let me back up for a minute, because the 4th chapter actually plays into what it is that we're going to be talking about here in chapter 5. Taking a look here, it says, now this is his testimony. What I like about this is King Belteshazzar, now not Nebuchadnezzar, but we're talking about King Belteshazzar, he gave a great banquet, okay, for his 1,000 nobles. And in the presence of the 1,000, okay, in the presence of the 1,000, he drank wine, all right? Now, I want you to notice the next verse, because, of course, a little time goes on. You can imagine there's music playing, there's a lot of drinking going on, a lot of laughter, a lot of partying going on, right? So it says here, it reads, under the influence of wine, Belteshazzar was. He was under the influence of wine, and when he was under the influence of wine, he began to do something that he should never have done. Belshazzar, ordered, now, please understand this. He ordered that the gold and the silver vessels that his father Nebuchadnezzar had taken out of the temple at Jerusalem to be brought, so that the king and his nobles, and his consorts, and his concubines could defile them and drink out of them. Okay? Now, there is a lesson in this, because, of course, these are the vessels. These are the vessels that were taken from Jerusalem. They were taken out of the holy place. They were taken out of the temple where they would worship. They were, remember, these are the same utensils that were consecrated. Okay? They were consecrated unto the service of Yah. But now we see that they're taken out of their service for Yah, and they're now going to be the playthings of individuals who are ceremonially and spiritually unclean. And so they're going to take these things and they're going to drink out of them. But wait a minute, it's not enough that they themselves are going to drink out of them. Listen, let me just recall your attention back to when Moshe was in the desert and he noticed the bush burning, right? He goes into that area and you begin to see something very interesting. Now, at this particular point of Moses' life, He was a wanted man by Pharaoh, right? He had been wandering the desert. He hadn't had a time to take a ritual bath. I don't even think that they didn't do those things back then, unless he would have taken a bath out of the order of the Egyptian order of priesthood, which some say that he was Osarsif. He was the priest of Amun in ancient Egypt, in Kemet. Well, don't necessarily know that that's fact. However, Moshe did know about ceremonial bathing, and he did know about being sanctified before a particular deity, because this is what the Egyptians did. And in fact, it was the Egyptians who at first would not eat with Hebrews. Now, if you notice, in talking about Yosef, when Yosef meets his brothers, right, you notice that in the banquet in Joseph's own home, you notice what Scripture says. Scripture says that they ate separately. They ate separately because a Egyptian would not eat with a Hebrew. So the Egyptians have their own level and their own, if you will, their own code of sanctification. However, I'm just simply wanting to point out to you that Moshe was well aware of how the Egyptians, who back in Joseph's day, now think about this for a second, if back in Joseph's day they would not even eat with a Hebrew, and they cut their hair, they wore wigs, they were very concerned about cleanliness. You have to understand that even after hundreds of years would pass, Moshe would definitely have come in contact and have known about ritual bathing and being pure and being sanctified, but he didn't have an opportunity to do any of this. He's been wandering in the fields, right? He's been dealing with the fact that he's a leader, but yet he's out there with sheep, so he's got some inner turmoil going on. He's got a little bit of perhaps some inner work that needs to be done, right? He's got to reconcile some things and deal with some issues within him. He has, even though it's in the line and in the suit of delivering one Hebrew, delivering his brother, he yet had blood on his hands. So there was a lot going on with Moshe. But as I recall, notice that when he got into the area where the bush was burning, notice he was not shooed away, and he was not told, look, you just get out of here because you have not taken a ritual bath, you haven't, gone, your clothes aren't clean, you smell like animals, you smell like the field. But notice what was said to him. What was said to him was, the only issue that I have is I don't want you wearing those sandals in my presence, okay? Because while your sandals that are man-made, they're not worthy to be in my presence. They're not worthy to touch the ground that I'm standing on. But he said, now, if you take off your sandals, that's perfectly fine. So in other words, the individual Moshe was not impure so that he could not stand in the presence of Yahweh our Elohim, but rather our Elohim desired that his feet touch the ground and that his feet be what is connecting by means of the ground. And I could get into how the earth is energy and the ground, and there's an electrical connection between everything that touches the ground. But I'm not going to go there right now. But I just simply want to say that as our Elohim was in the bush burning, causing it to appear as a fire, he said, no, don't come any closer until you take your shoes off. Now, if you take your shoes off and you touch the ground, that's fine. Why? Because what I've placed in you is holy. What I've placed in you is absolutely holy, and you have a right to stand on the same ground that I stand on, okay? And so just kind of contrast that with how here, as we read, let's take a read here. Belshazzar takes the vessels that were anointed, and he's allowing consorts and nobles, politicians of his day, the concubines and, little hoochie mamas, letting them all drink out of these holy vessels, This was a huge offense. This was a very huge offense, Leviticus 10:10 says, "Be ye holy, for I am holy." Our Elohim places a very high premium on being holy and being set apart. That's why everything in our lives For every area of our lives, there has to be something set apart for him. This is why we dress a certain way with our talits on, okay? With our fringes on. Why? Because we're sanctified in our dress. We eat a special way. Why? Because we're sanctified in our diet. We observe Shabbat, and we observe holy days. We observe Hamodim. Why? Because our time, we're sanctified in even our time. Our time is also holy. And so in everything that we are, in everything that we do, Yahuwah, our Elohim, should be represented in that, okay? And so we're set apart because we have put a place. We've set a place for him in every area of our lives, and we wear it, we do it with all boldness, we be it with all boldness. Why? Because we are witnessing, and I know how people use that term, but we are witnessing, okay, that we belong to him, right? We are witnessing that we belong to him, and so in every area, in every place, when it comes to finances and money, everything that we are, everything that we have, we represent him. There's something in it that we do that represents him. But when it comes to, and by the way, we're signifying that we're a vessel and that we're sanctified unto him and that we're holy unto him, right? But when it comes to Belshazzar and allowing all of these little, politicians and unsanctified folk drink out of the holy vessels, right? What happened to Nadab and Abihu, the sons of Aaron, the first two oldest sons of Aaron, when they who were anointed to be priests, when they were anointed, but they just decided to do something at the wrong time and in the wrong way? What happened? They died, right? And so we understand that our Elohim is very particular about the times and the seasons, very particular. Okay? And he's very particular about his sanctified vessels. And so that's why it is important to do things correctly and to walk circumspectly before him. Looking at what he does here, he says that, you know what, go and get those golden vessels. I know that they're supposed to be holy, the God of Israel, right? Ha ha, as he's drinking. And so they go and they get, now notice what it says here. It says that he told them to go and get the vessels, and he let them drink out of the vessels. Notice what it says. They drank wine, and they added insult to injury. They drank wine and praised the gods. You shall have no other God before my face. Right? You shall not have no other God before my face. But notice what they did. They drank wine and they praised the gods of gold and silver and bronze, iron, wood, and stone. Now, I just want to paint the picture here because they're having a good time. There's laughter. People are telling jokes. I mean, food is everywhere. Drink is everywhere. The band is playing. They're probably on point, right? And so now his consorts and everyone, they are drinking, right? They are drinking wine, and they are having a good time, and he decides to show out, and he says, "Ha! Look at me! Look at how powerful we are. We took the vessels from the temple in Israel, and we took the God's vessels, and now we're just going to dog it, right? We're just going to do what we want to with the vessels." And there's a lesson in this. We're going to do what we want to with the vessels, right? We're Babylon. We're going to do what we want to do with the vessels. Notice what it reads. They drunk and they praised the gods. They put other gods before our Elohim's face. Just then, notice what it says. When they had already added insult to injury, but when they praised their gods who were not gods, with the vessels that God had ordained and consecrated for his use, it was then that the scripture tells us that the fingers of a man's hand, the fingers of a human hand appeared. The fingers, not the palm, but the fingers, right? The fingers of a human hand appeared and wrote on the plaster of the wall of the king's palace opposite the lampstand. So that means, yeah, it was put where it could definitely be seen, right? When the handwriting was put on the wall, it was definitely being seen because it was right in front of the lampstand. Okay? And so the king saw it. And he saw the hand that wrote. He saw the hand that wrote. He saw the writing, right? I imagine that the fingers were actually digging into the plaster as the writing was taking place. Now, why is it significant? It's significant because if you notice, in fact, many of you have seen it, and I apologize, excuse me, I apologize that I don't have it, but there's a supposed quote from Hitler that says that the United States is in trouble because they have taken God's jewels. They have taken God's jewels. And he's referring to the transatlantic slave trade and how the Africans that are here are actually God's people, and that they have been taken, and that basically there's going to be HE double hockey sticks to pay, just like we read here. Okay? Now, please understand that just as Belshazzar made the